Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show where we take a whole stack of information, articles, research, and really boil it down to the core insights so you can get up to speed fast. Today, we're heading back to feudal Japan, a really pivotal moment, a single incident that completely changed the country's path. We're looking at the fall of Oda Nobunaga, Honno-ji Incident 1582. And this isn't just history, is it? It feels more like a deep dive into ambition, betrayal, legacy. Our goal here is to unpack the key lessons. The motivations, the big strategic moves, and maybe the mistakes that led to the end for one of Japan's most powerful figures.
It really is a fascinating account. It doesn't just list events. It gets into the human side of things, the dynamics, the little missteps that can, well, bring down giants. It's a compelling story, definitely, with some big implications about power and loyalty.
Okay, let's paint the picture for you. It's 1582, Oda Nobunaga. He spent decades fighting, unifying Japan. And he's right there, on the verge. How powerful was he, really?
Oh, incredibly. I mean, truly dominant. Nobunaga's campaigns had just systematically rolled over major rivals. Think the Taira, the Azai, Asakura, gone. He'd even managed to subdue the Iko-iki monks, who were a serious military and political force.
Wow.
And the imperial court in Kyoto. They basically recognized him as the de facto ruler. He controlled central Japan, and his best generals were out mopping up the last bits of resistance, the Muri and Uezu-hi clan.
Right, he sounds completely unbeatable, almost invincible in the accounts, but
Yeah.
we know what's coming. So what was the hidden weakness, the Achilles heel?
Well, that's the interesting part, isn't it? His military brilliance was absolutely undeniable. Those campaigns were swift, often brutal, very effective. But that sheer power seems to have bred a kind of dangerous complacency. The sources we looked at really emphasize this. He started to overestimate how loyal his subordinates actually were.
What?
And that turned out to be, well, a fatal error, a really crucial lesson there about leadership, I think, even today. You can't take loyalty for granted.
So this huge turning point, this betrayal, it seems to start with something almost routine, a military operation. Tell us about Takamatsu.
Exactly. Takamatsu Castle. It was a key stronghold of the Mutri clan, one of those pockets of resistance. And Nobunaga's general, Hashiba Hideyoshi, who, later becomes Toyotomi Hideyoshi, a huge figure himself, he was besieging it. But instead of just throwing men at the walls, which would have been costly, Hideyoshi did something really clever. He diverted rivers and flooded the whole area around the castle.
Flooded it. Wow. Okay. Ingenious.
Yeah. Put the defenders in a really tight spot, no way out, running out of supplies.
And Hideyoshi needed more troops for this, right? To keep the pressure on. Who did Nobunaga send?
He did, yes. He requested reinforcements, and Nobunaga assigned the task to Akechi Mitsuhide.
Mitsuhide. Okay, here we go.
Right. Now, Mitsuhide was a capable general, very experienced, but, and this is critical, something the sources really focus on, he felt deeply neglected, emotionally neglected, even publicly humiliated by Nobunaga over the years.
Okay, so this isn't just a standard order for Mitsuhide. It lands differently. Why was this specific moment so significant for him? What made it the breaking point?
It seems like it was the culmination. It wasn't just one thing. Nobunaga had apparently, over years, chipped away at Mitsuhide's dignity. Things like public insults, maybe taking away lands, excluding him from important meetings or honors, that kind of thing. So it wasn't a single grievance, but this steady accumulation of resentment, this feeling of being slighted. The sources suggest this mission, maybe he saw it as another dismissal, or perhaps just the opportunity he needed. It lit the fuse.
So Mitsuhide gathers his army, supposedly heading for Takamatsu to help Hideyoshi. But he doesn't go there. What does he do?
No, he turns around. In a move that must have been just shocking, he marches his forces straight back to Kyoto, and there he launches a totally unexpected attack on Nobunaga himself, who was staying at the Honno-ji Temple.
At a temple. Why was Nobunaga there? Did he feel safe?
Presumably, yes. Deep in his own territory. Probably didn't expect an attack from one of his own generals. He had very few guards with him. It was supposed to be secure. The assault was fast, overwhelming, decisive.
And the accounts mentions someone specific, a figure of incredible loyalty caught in this chaos.
Yes, Yasuge, the African samurai serving Nobunaga directly. The sources highlight his bravery, how he fought valiantly to defend Nobunaga in that moment. His loyalty really stands out, It highlights things of honor, duty, and it's also a fascinating glimpse into the maybe unexpected multicultural aspects of feudal Japan at that time.
A really striking detail.
Yeah.
But even with Yasuke's efforts, the situation was hopeless for Nobunaga. What was his final act?
Facing capture, which would have been the ultimate dishonor for a samurai lord, Nobunaga chose seppuku. Ritual suicide. It was an assertion of control in his final moments, and he ordered the temple to be set on fire, ensuring his enemies wouldn't get his body or his head as a trophy.
And that fire, that destruction, it leads straight into one of history's great mysteries, doesn't it?
Absolutely, because, crucially, his body was never found, never recovered from the ashes, which, of course, immediately sparked rumors. Legends. Did he really die? Did he somehow escape? Is he hiding somewhere?
Right.
It adds this whole layer of mystique to him, like King Arthur, or maybe even figures like Elvis or Tupac in more modern times. That ambiguity about the end just makes the legend bigger.
So Nobunaga's gone. Mitsuhide, the architect of the betrayal, declares himself the new power. But his time at the top was incredibly brief.
Oh, incredibly brief, like blink and you miss it. His power was totally ephemeral. He made a huge miscalculation. He seemed to think everyone felt like he did, maybe. He completely underestimated the loyalty Nobunaga had inspired in his other key commanders.
Meanwhile, Hideyoshi, back at Takamatsu.
Hideyoshi hears the news, and his reaction is just stunningly fast. He instantly makes peace with the Mushi clan he was just fighting, like overnight. Then he turns his army around and force marches them back towards Kyoto at unbelievable speed. It's often called the Great Shugoku Retreat. Just an amazing feat of logistics and leadership. He was coming from Mitsuhide.
That speed from Hideyoshi is incredible. Our sources really highlight this as a key insight. What does it demonstrate about leadership in that kind of situation?
It's a masterclass, really. Hideyoshi understood that in the chaos following Nobunaga's death, speed was everything. Timing, initiative. And he understood loyalty, too. He rallied forces loyal to Nobunaga's memory against the betrayer. His swift action basically crushed Mitsuhide's chances to consolidate power before they even began. It shows how critical decisive action and leveraging existing loyalties are, especially when things are unstable. It ultimately set Hideyoshi up to be Nobunaga's successor.
So even though Nobunaga's own story ends abruptly, violently at Honno-ji, his actual impact, it seems much bigger than just his military conquest. What was his lasting legacy?
Oh, absolutely. He was far more than just a warlord. He was a genuine revolutionary for Japan. Think about it. He embraced firearms, muskets on a large scale. That fundamentally changed warfare there forever. He broke the power of the old feudal aristocracy, which had kept Japan fractured. That paved the way for a truly unified state.
And economically.
He pushed for economic growth, encouraged trade, even with foreigners to some extent. He was opening Japan up in ways that hadn't been before. Plus, he suppressed those powerful, often rebellious Buddhist monasteries that acted like states within a state, that reshaped the whole relationship between religion and political power in Japan.
So putting all that together,
Yeah.
what did his actions, his vision, ultimately mean for Japan's future, even though he didn't live to see it fully realized?
Well, despite his premature death, the work he did, the unification he started, the reforms he put in place laid the essential groundwork. The foundation was there. It was that foundation that allowed his successors, Hideyoshi and then Tokugawa Ieyasu, to complete the unification and establish the Tokugawa shogunate.
Shogunate that ruled for centuries, right?
Exactly, for 250 years. An unprecedented period of peace and stability, largely built on the changes Nobunaga initiated.
And there's a comparison the sources make to help us grasp his sheer historical weight.
Yes, it's quite a powerful one. They compare him to Julius Caesar in Rome.
Caesar, okay.
Yeah. Both were these incredibly dynamic, transformative figures, brilliant leaders. Both met violent ends that threw their nations into chaos temporarily. But their long-term impact, the changes they set in motion, profoundly outlived them and shaped the future course of their civilizations. It's a telling comparison, I think. So when you pull it all together, this story, this deep dive, it's more than just dates and battles, isn't it? It really feels like a meditation on ambition, what drives people, and betrayal, how it happens, its consequences, and then legacy, what endures, and just the sheer force of transformation, how societies change.
Yeah, the fall of Nobunaga is such a stark reminder that even immense power, seemingly absolute power, is always vulnerable. Vulnerable to human emotion, to perceived slights, and maybe most importantly, to loyalty that's been lost or neglected.
Definitely. And it also casts a light on figures like Yasuke with his incredible loyalty and Hideyoshi with his sharp opportunism and leadership. They shaped what came next, carrying forward parts of Nobunaga's vision, but in ways he probably never imagined.
So as you think about this deep depths about the Honno-ji incident, here's something to consider. How often do the real seeds of a major downfall, whether it's an empire, a company, maybe even a personal project, how often do they lie not in some big external enemy, but in those small, perhaps unnoticed moments of neglecting the people closest to the center of power? And what does that teach us about strength and vulnerability? Maybe they're not always what they seem, something to definitely mull over.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into one of history's really gripping moments. We'll catch you next time.